filmed a bunch of stuff yesterday, and it turns out the footage wasn't really usable. So came out here into the garage. I was gonna plug in the bounder, make sure it was charged, since it's another nice day outside. I was thinking I'd go running around or whatnot. But then I remembered, there's this thing laying here on the floor. So, we're going to make more progress on this thing. I figured out how to mount the motors. By the way, this is the BMW Power Wheels thing. I got the rear axle out of it and got the tires off. It's actually pretty interesting. These wheels are sort of like manual wheelchair wheels. There's a straight axle, and then you push this button, and there's a release mechanism in here, and the wheels just pop right off. We're gonna go to the hardware store, grab some parts I need for this, and then today, if nothing else, we're gonna get the motors attached to this thing. And yeah, I found there's actually a pretty easy way to do it. So, without further ado, let's hop in the van, and some of the stores are a little weird about things, so I'll probably just film with my phone. It rattles when I shake it. Maybe I'll grab a different phone. But yeah, let's go get some stuff. I've noticed trends recently. There's a lot more SJWs out there running around. I mean, it's almost impossible to go anywhere without Karen or Steve telling you what they think. I got a little bit annoyed at the store. I was getting ready to head out into the garage and show you the stuff I bought. And then I made a giant mess in the kitchen. I went to grab my coffee that was sitting right here, and it rolled out of my hand. First it spilled all over the place right here. It's all over my mail. And then it bounced here, bounced there, shot up onto the cabinet, reached down to grab it, like a bar of soap, it rolled out of my hand again, and then made all my coffee go over there. So, ugh. Gross. I don't know what's more annoying, having to clean this up or having to make more coffee. We'll just sweep it under the rug and deal with it later, I think. Yeah, it sounds like a good plan. Oh, wait. Oh, there's still some left in here. Sweet. Ah, that's better. And did it again. It's one of those days. What we ended up with, I didn't feel like driving around industrial areas and scrounging for spare pallets and lumber. So they had this round birch thing at the store. I think I can get 2 of what I need out of this. I guess I should probably show you my plan, so you know why I need plywood. Also got a bunch of fender washers, some more washers. I did get some of these poly spacers, but I figured it'd be easier just to get some sprinkler standoff pipe, and that way I can cut my own spacers with this, with the bandsaw. And you know, sometimes it's exactly what I need when I throw the coffee on the floor and it explodes everywhere, especially if I'm having an interesting day. If something else happens that's just like, of course, then I'm not even mad at all. It's actually kind of funny, because it's like, oh, well, of course that happened. And now I'm not upset anymore. I just find it funny. Okay, so we used to have this here axle thing that was in here like this, and the wheels were attached to it. This thing was set up with a one-wheel peel sort of arrangement. We had a motor and one of the wheels over here with gears connecting it. This one was just free spinning. So what we're gonna do, if you notice right here, we have this nice flat surface, and there's already a couple holes drilled in there. On the inside, that is the edge of the seat right here. But it makes a nice flat mounting surface. This, the more you grunt, the lighter it is. This is going to be the plan right here. So this is going to slide back to about here, and
this is essentially going to bolt right onto this flat surface. I'm going to cut a piece of plywood here, and then we're going to attach the plywood to the little car, and then we'll drill some holes, attach the bolts to that, and then we'll use the spacers because this is at a little bit of an angle. So as you can see, we've got these exhaust tip things on the back, and there used to be one right here. So I just cut that out so the motor sticks through right there. And I thought it'd be kind of cool having the motor sticking out on the back, sort of like the exhaust. Or as our friends up north say, the engines, which in this application in American slang would be about right. Yeah, so I'm going to get some measurements of this. We're going to cut down that piece of plywood. We're going to make up a little thing to mount it to in here. And then, yeah, stuff. Now we have these things. They're going to go, boom, right here. And as you can see, we need a little bit of spacing. So I'm going to use some of those spacers I got, I think. And then probably just going to use some cheapo Harbor Freight bolts and space this in here so it's level. First off though, I should probably get all the holes and stuff drilled so this thing fits on here. Got to drill out 6 holes and then a 7th one here. This is the neutral disengagement, whatever, lever. We're not going to use that, but we'll have to cut a hole out so I can go through here. So I'm going to get all these holes drilled real quick. Alright, we've got this, I think, pretty much mocked up. We're ready to make some spacers and attach the first motor. Now, this thing is not going to have a whole lot of weight on it, so using plywood and mounting to bits of plastic shouldn't really be too much of an issue. But this right here is essentially going to be our mounting plate, and the motor is going to attach to these holes here and stick out the back. But as you can see, this surface is not exactly level, so I'm going to have to make some spacers for this bolt, and the back one. I'm probably going to just put a stack of washers on there. And as you can see, we're pretty much level. So I think, yeah, we're getting pretty close here. And then once I figure out the mounting points, I'll just clamp this to the other piece of wood, drill the holes, and then when we work on the other side, I can just punch the holes through using this as a template on the plastic. But as you can see here, I've made a few different holes trying to figure out where I want this exactly, but I think these 3 are going to be plenty and do what we need it to do. Alright, here we have the first one ready to be installed. Again, kind of quick and dirty. You'll see that these are a little bit crooked, but that's okay. Once they go in there, the spacers and everything should hold them in place. So yeah, I'm going to grab the other motor out of here now. Oh, looks like the wheel is actually still attached to it. Let's see. Alright, so I'm going to get the wheel off this thing, get that arm off, get this all prepped, and we'll get the wooden plywood adapter plate. Uh-oh. Looks like we're leaking some oil. Well, we'll have to clean that up, but we'll get this one all ready to go next. Okay, this wound up being a lot more work than I was expecting. But for right now, we have this thing attached. I had to space it down a little bit more. These are the wheels and the hubs that are designed to go on these motors. We can pull the hubs off and put something else on, but what I didn't think about was the clearance on the body. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm just going to stick with these wheels, or these tires for right now. And I'm just going to trim the body here just a little bit. And I think I'm probably going to have to trim down this plywood here with the jigsaw just a tiny bit as well. But I want to get this one side on here, flip it down, and see what it looks like. We're only going to have maybe this much ground clearance on the back of the motor. But again, this is just for novelty factor. It's not like a high-end thing, you know? So
I'm going to keep hammering away at this, and when I come back, we'll at least have it sitting on the ground.
So something about the body being plastic and the motor like wobbling around and stuff. There's the bolts holding the motor assembly on. I think we're going to need some cross bracing or something under there maybe. Well, I'm not opposed to camber on something like this. I think that's just going to get worse as time goes on, so
let's go back to the drawing board, as it were.
Oh, so actually it's not as bad as I thought. So this is the problem we're having. I think all I need to do is get the other motor on there, and then I can pick up this bolt and the one that'll be on the motor and run sort of a strut bar that goes across that squeezes both of these together, and that will keep them from flaring out. Okay, good. I think we're doing all right. And as far as getting bigger tires on here, we can just trim more of this. But yeah, actually, I think that's going to work. All right, let me get the other motor installed.
Okay, so we're getting really close. I need to run back to the hardware store to build up sort of a panhard bar or something to connect the two motors together to keep them from cambering out under its own weight, just because they're mounted to plastic.
But check it out. We've got them on here. You can see how this is sort of tilted up like that. I'm going to get a bar that connects between these 2 points and squeezes together. And I might actually trim out some of the plastic that's right in here too, to allow them to sit down a little bit further. If you see right there where that bearing is on the motor and that piece of plastic that sticks out, I think I'm going to chop that off. And that will give us just enough for this motor to sit down. I can just do that with a utility knife pretty easily. But the back of this thing actually looks pretty cool. I get the feeling I'm going to need to install some exhaust tips on the back of these motors. But yeah, I think this thing is going to be pretty cool.
The plan is just to fire it up with the stock electronics that it has. It's essentially the same control system that a hover round uses, where the motor controller is built into the joystick, and at least, you know, get it running around. But I know I can run these motors on 36 volts, no problem. So I may get a cheapo Chinese aftermarket motor controller and connect it up that way. Next thing we need to figure out is steering. You still have to turn the steering wheel on this thing, and I'm thinking what I might do
is install some caster wheels kind of right down here so that they're just behind these tires, and these will be off the ground maybe like an inch, and that way those caster wheels will be able to turn, and it's going to be a lot easier to accomplish the steering with left and right motors, same way a power chair works. I could put some servos on here so that these move back and forth, but that's going to require some channel mixing and buying some fairly expensive linear actuators and stuff and trying to integrate those. So I think for now, we'll probably just do the caster wheel thing. But
at any rate, I'm going to run to the hardware store. I think I'm going to get some conduit, pound the ends flat, drill some holes so I can pick up a couple of bolts, and then chop it in half and weld like a turnbuckle in the middle. That way I can adjust the tension on it. But yeah, I'm gonna grab some parts and then I'll show you what I end up with.
All right, we have some stuff. So I thought about originally using a turnbuckle and then instead of these eye hooks, using all thread rod to extend it out and pick up bolts on each side of the motor. But then I realized I couldn't find left-hand threaded rod because turnbuckles, one side is right hand and the other side is left hand. And my thought was, well, whatever. So I decided to get some flat bar. What I'm going to do is cut this flat bar. I'm going to drill a hole in each end to pick up this bolt and this bolt. I'm going to cut it in half in the middle. Then I'm going to weld it onto these eyelets. That way we'll have a turnbuckle here in the middle with flat bar picking up the bolts, and we can make our tension adjustment. So that'll be really easy to do with the welder. It's just a little 120 volt Harbor Freight flex core MIG welder. So this is totally in the wheelhouse for that. Not exactly structural. I went ahead and bought the all thread anyway just because it was like $2.30, and this stuff is handy to have around. So anyways, let's grab the welder and make some parts. Okay, this actually worked amazingly well. I cut the plastic here just a little bit so this bearing on the motor can fit down inside there. This one was spaced a little bit closer than this side was. So all I had to do was tighten this up, and now this thing is solid. It is not going anywhere. So let's tip it down on its wheels now and check the camber. Oh yeah, that is great. So we've even got a little spacing on our fender here, and if we push down on it, it is solid. That is not flexing anywhere. Nice. Yeah, it looks great over here too. Obviously we don't have the bling wheels on here at the moment, but look at the way the motors stick out of the back of this thing. It's like some sort of weird exhaust. Oh, this is gonna be great. Okay, cool. Alright, so this thing is coming along really well. It's obviously sitting at a little bit of a rake. I'll probably wind up putting smaller front wheels on it. I mean, we don't have a whole lot of ground clearance there on the back, which isn't necessarily too much of an issue, but the hard part's done. Now all we have to do is the electronics and wiring, which shouldn't really be too big of a deal. Look at this thing. Isn't that great? It's crazy. This thing has like working door handles and like latches and stuff. It's just, I think this was an expensive toy at some point. Would have been nice to keep the bling wheels on it, but I don't necessarily think that's gonna work. I do like the giant racing slicks on the back though. Yeah. Oh, also, there is no way to put the thing in neutral, so it's a little bit hard to move around. Still kind of a mess in here, but you can see the tops of the motors are basically mounted with these 3 bolts here on each side on the plastic, and that plastic flexes quite a bit, so that's why I had to put that connecting bar between the 2 halves of the motors. Also, I'm noticing now my measuring may have been a wee bit off. See, this motor is sticking out further than this one is, so this wheel's further back than the one on that side. I mean, not really too big of a deal. Somebody sees this thing running around, they're not going to be nitpicking over stuff like that. The idea is it's just an amazing large RC car that I've never seen anyone do it before. I'm sure people have, but yeah. I've got one of those little 3-wheeled ShopRider scooters, and I think I have a spare battery pack for it. It's a small one. It's sort of like half the size of a carry-on bag. I need to replace the batteries in it, but I think that might be a good power plant for this thing, because it'll sit in there and it outputs 24 volts. Has a standard XLR charging jack on it. Actually, I think it's sitting right over here on the shelf of parts. But anyways, I think that's progress for now. I think we'll call it good for today. I'm going to continue working on this, and we're going to get this thing going here pretty soon. I definitely want to see this thing running around in the front yard.